So let's see first, how do I tune the THEORBO? Sometimes it looks easier than it really is. What I do is I tune first the first 7 strings which I have on the short neck, let's say as it would be a guitar or a lute. Once the first 7 strings are tuned, what I do is I tune the basses. So for this purpose we have to stand up and not be lazy about standing up every time for tuning. That's one way, thinking F with the A makes a major third, or the other way I can just tap the F, stops, and I tune with the octave. It's better to play close to the bridge, which is so high that it doesn't fit inside of the screen. I am here up, then E, open string, D with the D, for the C I have to tap the C on the 5th string. That's good. B natural, we can do this. Sorry. Then A. And then G with the G. We will need some corrections afterwards, but in that way we can already start playing. So another thing we'll talk about is how do I sit. There are several ways of sitting with the strap. One way is what I do is just having a shorter strap which goes from here. I just tie it, as you can see, I tie it on the peg box, and here is tied here on the bottom of the THEORBO, and then I add a tail. Can be made or can be just a piece of leather, as I do here, as I do have here. Then I pass the strap through my shoulders, and then what do I do with the strap? There are several ways of sitting. One way is just sitting in top of it. You can see there on the mirror behind me. I sit like this, and the instrument stays alone. Another way is I can pass the strap from here, and I pull from the right side, and that also works very well. This kind of sitting brings the THEORBO look more to your left, which it might be, if the THEORBO is particularly big, it might be a bit too far away. So I can regulate it by just pulling a bit less of the strap or more. Another thing that might happen with the THEORBO is that it turns like that. So one way of avoiding this could be, not of course with a piece of you know, this rubber pieces of, they look like fabric, they put it under the carpets, no, so that you avoid the THEORBO sliding. But the other way is just using the same strap you used on front. Sorry, you cannot see much here. It's the first time I'm like this, you see. This also holds the instrument quite well. Now we are ready. For me, those are the healthiest way of holding the instrument. So we can do also other things, like we can sit in another way, like for instance, without the strap or without the understrap, and so just like this, which requires that you are fit, because you have to hold the instrument with two legs and you have to cross the legs, which means that we are a bit unbalanced. I think it's doable. It is just a matter of getting used, but the instrument is big, so we have to be careful when we do that to stretch properly the back and the legs. Another thing I do as well is I mix different ways of sitting. So when I play in a long production, like let's say opera or orchestra, I use the one I told you where I pass the strap through the legs, between the legs. When I'm practicing playing solo, I rather tend to be that way, or even with the strap, as we said, sitting on it, side, but then crossing the legs. So I have the instrument leaning in 2 points, not just in one. This is good for continuo, because in continuo we don't have difficult passages, we just have chords in first position. But as far as we get into solo pieces or something which requires that the left hand is moving more, or that we have to leave the instrument without the hands leaning on it for a while, and we don't want the instrument moving very much or wiggling, so we can use this one. So in that way we can trap the instrument in 2 points. And then in the way of plucking, as you just saw, I am plucking very close to the bridge, because it's what we see on the paintings and what we see on the left instruments, where we see the mark of the playing here, as mine you see here, which I use very often the pinky behind the bridge, or even the ring finger on the bridge or behind the bridge. It depends what kind of music I play. But if I play opera, now I want this kind of penetrating sound, which is metallic at the same time. It's powerful, but we don't have to apply too much force, because the tension of the strings is giving us this kick, no? Especially if you play with gut string, opposed to which is beautiful if we are close to the instrument, but as soon as we have another instrument playing with us, this sound gets diluted. Gracias, Carlos. So I know that for many of us, which we learn our instruments through the CDs, no? Listening to the recordings, where the sound is always beautiful and round, this is a bit difficult to bear at the beginning. But when you hear that on a stage and you are surrounded by musicians, that is really very professional sound. You really can hear the instrument and you feel that you are part of the ensemble. As soon as you are here, as beautiful it sounds here, once we have more instruments, the sound gets diluted. So I would encourage you to try to experiment on this zone here. I mean, we have many ways we can play, as I said, with the pinky on the bridge, like this. I have even today, exceptionally, I have a bit of nail, very little. It's also true that the how do you call it? Yeah, the downside and the gut strings, they don't allow having long strings, long nails, because then you consume them very quickly. So as I was showing to you, so that's one way. Now I will put the pinky behind the bridge. Top of bridge. After the bridge. As you see, it sounds a bit louder, but the sound is less specific, is less concrete. So here you hear the percussion of the arpeggio. Arpeggio is the way that the instrument speaks the best, especially in early music from the 17th century, from the beginning of the 17th century. Another way of placing your right hand is like Kapsberger suggests, which is with the ring finger al di qua del ponticello. Al di qua del ponticello means not really on the bridge, but here. So this way of playing requires a bit of practice, because at the beginning the feeling is that these two fingers, they don't want to split. But once you get used to it, it's very useful, especially when we play in the central part, like Kapsberger. Let me remember. I forgot. So when you play in this zone here, this position, bring your hand in that direction. Instead, this position brings the weight down. So the sound is much more covered. And when you are with the ring finger, the weight of my hand is going in that direction. And I normally play much more parallel to the strings, which makes the sound much more direct, as I said before. Thank you. British Australia. So as you can see, all this amount of notes, at the moment I do this, becomes a soup. And so that's one of the ways of getting clearer sound. And actually, the people who invent the instrument, the theorbo players from the 17th century, as you can see on the pictures, they normally play in this area of the instrument. Piccinini says to have the hand between the rose and the bridge, which would be something like that. It depends on what is in the middle. Is the thumb? Now the thumb is in the middle, and then. Hola Rodolfo, nada, saludos desde Suiza. Estoy en la parte de abajo del lago Le Mans, en Evian. Thank you. So, como estaba, how I was saying, merhaba, I was saying, I have when I am playing like this, I have this part of the thumb is in the middle of the between the bridge and the rose, or do we mean the index in the middle of the same point, or do we mean the pinky, which I don't think so. So I think he says close to the bridge. Actually I forgot, I don't remember, he says on the bridge or close to the bridge. But I would say that from what I see on the paintings, from what I saw on the instrument, the historical instruments that we still have on the museums, where you can see the mark of the pinky or the ring finger, that's the area for the instrument. So it's normally instruments, these instruments, they have a big bow. Mine is particularly small, although it sounds very well, but many theorbos are still bigger, which means that the sound is very resonant. So when you have dark sound, you really need some small percussion which helps the sound goes through. So let's do some exercise of arpeggios. So I will do one G minor arpeggio, which means that I will, that will be the arpeggios I use normally for whole notes when I'm studying, which is semibreve in Italian or redondas in Espanol, which is when I play whole notes, the kind of arpeggio I'm doing, which is the complete arpeggio. So I start with 16th foot, which is the low G, next G, D, G, index, middle with G, B flat, and then I repeat the thumb on G, and then at last the highest note, the D. Once again. So with this arpeggio, I normally, what I do is I play at the beginning of the beat, and the last note has to be in the middle of the beat. So if I say 1, 2, being every beat half notes, so semibreve, blancas, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So I don't normally play too much with the dynamics, so I don't play louder and softer very much, but I play with the speed of the arpeggio. So if I do this, 1, 2, so this sounds louder because I am pushing all the notes towards the right. If I instead I do 1, 2, 1, 2, this kind of sound, you see, it's a space in the notes which gives an effect of softer. So instead, especially in opera or in Italian music from the beginning of the century, the 17th century, I try more to play with the speed of the arpeggio. But I normally do is to have the beginning of the note on the beginning of the beat, of course, and then in the middle having the ending of the arpeggio, so it gives the singer a very clear picture that where are we in terms of beat, so he or she can play better with their own rubato. And D minor chord, same thing. So 1, 2, 1, 2. If I am in the opera and I need more notes, I even add the fifth. So we have the arpeggios for the whole note. Let me tune. The D went out of time. So with gut strings, we have to get used to the fact of standing and tuning. That shouldn't be something which is difficult to do. So let's go back to D minor. So D, A, F, A with the thumb, and index on the third. So what's the logic of the arpeggio? The logic of the arpeggio is with the thumb, all the notes I can put inside of the chord without playing the highest. So I avoid this one once again. Once I'm here, I play index and middle finger on the first and second strings, and then I play again the fourth string just to have one more note, and then the highest note. Once again. make an extension of this chord, of this arpeggio would be so. And then same thing like before. So this is the arpeggio that I mostly use, I would say always use for my whole notes. Semibreve, redondas, on this style, on the Italian music from the first half of the century. Then when I play half notes, so minima, blancas, I play only 4 notes, and I play normally with the bass 8 foot. 8 foot means the note which is written on the score. So. And I use the arpeggio that Kapsberger suggests us, which is thumb, index, middle, index. So let's do sequence of half notes. Again, that happens especially when you are traveling. And you are changing temperatures, humidities, pressure, everything that affects the instrument, especially when you play with gut strings. So for the newcomers, at the beginning of the video I am speaking about how to sit with the instrument. If you want, if it thinks you think it could be of help for you. So let's do again a sequence of half notes. So the bass is always, the thumb is always on the beat. I did a beautiful, weird 5 beats cadence just because I want to show more beats with half an hour. So again. You see, I have one string which is not gut because I had problems with the day. I changed it and I put the synthetic one, and it bothers me the whole time. Carlos Moreno. Eso es un gran tema. Yo creo que lo mejor es tocar un solo instrumento, pero como no es posible, pues tenemos que sobrevivir con eso. So Carlos is asking how to survive playing different instruments. I think that the best thing is to play just one instrument, solo uno. Since this is not possible because we are required to play many instruments like baroque guitar, lute, vihuela, and theorbos, etc. I think the best thing is to specialize more or less in one branch of them. In the case of Carlos, he says he plays classical guitar with the nails. Then I would say, okay, then play. Then you have to approach your instruments, which means then it's very difficult that you can play theorbo with the gut strings. Although they were doing it, they played with nails and gut. But honestly, I don't know how to do that, because when I do that, as I told you, I didn't do my nails today. They're slightly too long, and now I already see that one of the strings it has hairs, and you see, look, it's not good. So I have to cut the hair of the string, and I have also to file my nail, but it's very early in the morning for me still. So as I was saying, I would say if you play theorbo with nails and with synthetic strings and guitar, that shouldn't be any problem. But if you play a Renaissance lute and with gut strings and you play like this, you will need to have almost no nails, and then I find it difficult to combine with classical guitar. So I think you have to, I guess, make your choices, no, or have times, periods where you say, okay, I do half of a year only with classical guitar, half of a year only baroque lute, half of a year only viola, and then try to play around. There is no magic formula, I'm afraid. So I go back to the half note sequence. So I have the thumb on the beat, and during the beat I play the rest, these other 4 notes. So once again, 3, 4. So with this formula, I attack most of the half note basses they have. Then when I have quarter note basses, so negras or semi-minime, Italiano, quarter notes, I just play 2 notes, or when it's very easy, 3 notes, but I tend to 2 notes, like. Remember that we count the beats always in half notes, not in the quarter notes, okay? So in minima. So. This one sounds horrible. So as you see, so we have for the whole notes, for the half note, and for the quarter notes. This here is very easy because I have the open string. Or buongiorno Giorgio. So those are the, and then the 8th notes, corcheas, tipo de materiais para trás discos. Bom dia, Felipe. Não, olha, eu faço tudo com uma tripa. Eu não uso como se chama, sintético para os trastes. Here, Felipe was asking if I have used frets, synthetic frets, and I did once just to try, and I didn't like it at all. So I am very much bio theorbo player. So I was saying, once again, sorry, that was the easy, because I have open A, then I use 3, but normally I would use just 2 notes. When I have 3 notes, then I can also do. What else? So that is the Schnellkurs, quick course of continuo for theorbo in I would say 5 minutes, but no, I see I'm already there for in 30 minutes. So the next thing I would work on is to have specific formulas for cadences. So for instance, in D, so I would say, or so having these cadences in every key. remember that how many cadences are we going to do during our life? Some thousands. So it makes sense to spend a couple of mornings figuring out what kind of cadences we would like to use in this and this key, and then practice it well, and it is forever. Yeah? So I think that's all. I don't know more. So I would say, so I will spoke a bit of the position for the right hand, what I am using most. We spoke a bit about the position of the instrument, and we summarized some aspects of the Italian continuo from the very beginning of the 17th century for the instrument. So I hope it was useful for you, and I will be back. Ciao.